this is how I made my humanized Tulin wig. I made Tulin 3 years ago, and I absolutely love that cosplay, but the head has very little visibility, so he's kind of impossible to wear to cons that I'm trying to vlog at, and I always intended to give him a humanized wig, and I finally did it almost 3 years later. So I did order an Arta wig for this, but because of all the snowstorms and stuff, it has not even shipped yet. So I ended up sacrificing my old Daenerys Targaryen wig. We honor it for being in my closet for many years and me always being like, ooh, a light colored lace front. I could use that for so many things. I'm gonna hold on to it. And then almost sacrificing it for so many other projects, and then finally actually sacrificing it for Tulin because there was no way that wig was going to come in time. But very long lace front, so it needed a haircut, and I don't actually know how to cut hair. Like, I know how to style wigs decently, but doing a haircut that looks good is not something I can do. So I did the thing that I do to my own hair and did the Brad Mondo butterfly cut, where you put half of your hair up in a ponytail on the crown of your head and then cut it off in the ponytail, and then you put the rest of your hair in a ponytail in the front of your head and cut it off in a ponytail, and because you've misdirected the hair so far, you end up with a bunch of layers. Now, it is a haircut for much longer hair. Ooh, that's longer than I wanted. So of course I ended up with a whole bunch of long hair that I didn't need, and I had to keep cutting it. But it did a pretty decent job of giving this very long wig very short, cutesy, flippy layers. The big thing I did, though, was I left out a section of hair in the front so that it could be the plumes later. But with it cut, I got to crimping. So crimping is kind of an important thing for a very styled wig because it's a lot easier to get textured hair to do what you want it to do. So I basically crimped the entire base wig. The only part I did not crimp was the very, very top layer because it was mostly just going to fall on top of everything else. But especially the bottom layers, they all got crimped. But I had a new tool in my arsenal this time thanks to the one and only Alley Cat Cosplays, who I thank so much for this tip because it has changed everything. For a long time when I would crimp wigs, I would crimp and then I would run a fine-tooth comb through them to try and get rid of some of the crimping, but it doesn't really do that much. It helps a little bit, but Alley Cat Cosplays taught me that if instead of a fine-tooth comb, you use a boar hair bristle clamping brush, then it creates enough tension to actually significantly decrease the crimping texture. It makes it almost unrecognizable. It's there, the texture is there, you have the texture that you want, but you don't actually see the zigzag crimping. It makes such a huge difference. Shout out forever and ever Alley Cat Cosplay for sharing her wig knowledge with the world. Because this is it's just a tool. It's just switching out a tool, and it makes the crimping like almost completely go away while retaining the texture. This was stupid. Okay, let me show you this stupid thing I tried to do. So I have never once before tried to do a wig with these kind of flippy floppies, right? I know how to make my own hair do this. And one of the ways I can make my own hair do this is to take a brush and just do a blowout. And for some reason, I decided that maybe synthetic hair, maybe that can be done with a brush and a steamer. Maybe that will give me little flippies. Spoiler, that didn't do anything. I just steamed the hair. I don't know why I thought this would work, but here is me trying to do the little flippies with a paddle brush and a steamer. It didn't work. But what did work, and then I even tried to do it with a round brush. That didn't work either. Here's what did work. I got my tiny baby straightener. I got heat on the fiber, and then I got a round brush, and I took the baby straightener and I wrapped the hair around the round brush while it was still on the baby straightener, still getting hot, left it on the round brush for a couple seconds, let go, did everything I wanted it to. For the bottom ones, obviously I was just kind of flipping them upwards, but for everything on the sides, I curled them more like away from the face, less just like up. And I really like how they look. They're very wind-swept, very burr. This took a really long time. One of the things I had been contemplating is obviously I curl a lot of wigs, but I have a set of mesh rollers that is just a little too small for doing flippies like this. And I've seen people curl wigs like this before. One of the old wig curling techniques is like you get a wooden rod, you heat the fiber on a straightener and you hold it around the rod and you wait for it to cool for a second and you let it go and you've got a really, really springy little curl. But that takes forever. It especially takes a lot more time than just rolling all of the curls onto curlers. But I didn't feel like I was gonna be able to get flippies with the size of curlers that I have. I felt like this was my only option, but it worked really, really well, but it took forever. Yeah, because the hair is plastic, you have to let it cool down in the shape you want. For some reason, you don't have to with the human hair, and I don't know why. Well, you have to with human hair too. For my human hair, when I do my bangs, I curl it with a curling iron, and then I put it in a Velcro roller, and I leave it in the Velcro roller to cool, and that's why they stay good. Alyssa is correct though. I have heard cosplayers say this thing. They'll say, wig fiber doesn't curl by heating, it curls by cooling, which I don't love as a way to explain that because it kind of implies you could put a wig in a freezer and it would do something. The thing is the wig fibers are plastic. And so you're heating plastic. And if you heat the plastic and then you curl it and then you let go, it's gonna still be hot and gravity is gonna take away the work you just did for that curl. But if you leave it to cool, then it will now be heat set. It is being set by the heat, but because it's still hot, it will lose its shape because it's still hot. Not that freezers will make wigs do things. Okay, this is me trying it on. I was very happy with it, but at this point I was like, this is cute. This is exactly what I wanted. Oh. I'm a windswept bird. Oh, you know what though? It's kind of giving Peridot. It all comes back to Peridot. All right, wefts. So this is moving on to the ponytail. I've done wefts in a bunch of videos, but if you've never seen that, I take plastic wrap and I put it on my table, and then I put a line of tacky glue on the plastic wrap. I lay the fiber down into the glue. I put more glue on top of the fiber, and then I use a palette knife to smush the glue into the fiber. You have to leave this for a while. I left these overnight and they were totally cool in the morning, but you can also like hair dry the glue in between each round of glue, and then you won't have to wait as long if you're like in a rush. But this is a thing I hadn't really done before. So the hair I was working with for this was the offcuts from this wig itself when I cut all of the long hair off, but I still had a bunch of already crimped hair from Okaroon. I just kept all of his offcuts in a bag, which is also why in the ponytail there are a couple of random single fibers of the red hair that was mixed in with Okaroon's hair. But what I did for these wefts was I would do, glue, fiber, glue, and then I'd keep going layer after layer. Fiber, glue, more fiber, more glue, more fiber, more glue, smush it all together. And this worked really well for a ponytail like this where I didn't need like a lot of surface area. I didn't need like a lot of long wefts. I needed voluminous wefts that I could put together into a ponytail. So this was a really good way to do it. Article 12 is asking, is tacky glue in the UK or an equivalent? Tacky glue is a PVA glue. It is my favorite PVA glue, but you just want a PVA glue. So like Elmer's glue is a PVA glue. Elmer's glue is a little more watered down than tacky glue, but it's all the same kind of glue. So I'm sure the UK has a slightly thicker version of Elmer's glue that you could get. So this is the base of the ponytail. It is a styrofoam ball, and of course, before I get into this, we have to appreciate those who came before and just be like, this is to a T Kinpatsu Cosplay's ponytail technique. So it is a little piece of PVC pipe shoved into a styrofoam ball. There's a little tiny piece of EVA foam glued into the inside of the PVC pipe just to add traction, because what all of that is going to go on is a bolt with a Warbler X on the bottom of it. The Warbler X sits on your head and distributes the weight of the ponytail, and then the bolt goes through the wig and you can pop the ponytail on and off. But I was doing some weird stuff to this styrofoam ball. So the first thing I did was cover it in EVA foam scraps. The reason I did this was because I decided to add two rainbow-shaped lips to the styrofoam ball, and I put the little scraps of EVA foam on there just so that I had something better than styrofoam to glue the lips to, because styrofoam can be kind of weird with hot glue, but it's ugly, it looks bad, but nobody said it had to look good. It's gonna get covered in hair. But the reason I did the lips is because the ponytail goes outward, like it tapers out. So I wanted to give myself some kind of structure in there that would just naturally make the hair do that. And then I just glued all of the hair onto it. You can't really see me do it, but what I was doing was I would cut off a piece of the wefts, and then I would take the end of the weft and cut the end off, throw that part away, and then just come in and hot glue it to the base. Just all over it. You want to start back to front, because if you start front to back, you're going to be running into hair you already glued in. But this worked really well. Maybe I should add that I did this in 2 days, and that like day 1 was like doing the flippies in the base wig, and then that night I did all the wefts, and then the next day I went through and made the little styrofoam thing and got all the hair glued on the ponytail. I also took the whole thing, flipped it upside down, and steamed it, just to help it stay like upward. But you can see in this shot, that is the Warbler X that goes under the wig. So you cut a hole in the wig and you stick the bolt through and let the Warbler X stay inside the wig so it sits directly on your head, and then you pop on the ponytail. That is a old Kinpatsu cosplay trick that I have used so many times on so many things. It is just such a good solution to that. I know that a popular thing nowadays is the taking the top of like a plastic bottle and using that as a connector for a piece that can come off of a wig. I have never utilized that technique, because what happens when that plastic gets warped? What happens when you can't screw like it's a plastic cap and a plastic thread. And I get that it's like a thing that's free and it's more easily accessible than going and getting a bolt, but a bolt is like $2. And here's the other thing. You might be like, well, the Warbler X requires Warbler. It does not, because I have done the same thing, but made the X out of cardboard and duct tape. That works too. If you've got Warbler scraps and you want to use them, it is a good way to do it. If you've never touched Warbler, you don't have any Warbler scraps, you don't want to buy Warbler just for that, use cardboard and duct tape. If you've got, I've done it with hanger wire too, but hanger wire is a little more of a investment and you need more tools, but cardboard and duct tape and a bolt. And bolts are like $2 and it will never break. That's my thing with the plastic bottle caps and the bottle tops. Aren't those going to break at some point? And then your wig is broken. So this is me styling the ponytail. I've done much more detailed explanations on like basic wig styling before. Nothing I did here was like super duper hard, but this is just the old tease it real good, tease it real good, heat your teasing to set the teasing, let it cool a second, brush it out, you can tease it again, you can repeat ad nauseum as much as you need to. I didn't do a ton of that because these wefts were very, very thick and didn't need a ton of it, but tease them, brush them out real good, and then because they have been teased and because they are crimped, they're very easy to just shape with your hands and a little bit of hairspray and heat and get them into a bunch of little spiky spikes. And then obviously I did gray wefts in the front. This was just more of that ocaroon hair, and then I took it downstairs and dyed it real quick, but it's the same thing. Used the bottle cap technique recently, but I can confirm it's very, very finicky. I get why it's popular, because it's like, it feels like it's a genius thing to do. It feels like it's a resource you wouldn't have thought of. But when you get down to it, you are putting something that is a one-use plastic bottle that is meant to be thrown away. And depending on how heavy that wig piece is, there's no telling if a piece of plastic that is meant to be thrown away is going to hold up to all the heat tools you're putting near a wig and not get warped, and then you're screwed. Where you could just get a bolt that's metal for $2 and have something that you know will not break and will hold up the weight. Okay, this is the finalizing of the styling. As you can see, there is some hot glue involved to get these pieces where I wanted them. Later on, there's a lot more tacky glue involved, specifically with the plumes, though I apparently need more because this one is not behaving. Need some more tacky glue. Here's a big thing though. I went through on all of my spikes and I got a little bit of tacky glue on my hand, and I tacky glued all of the tips of all of my spikes so that they would stay together. And they look a little scraggly and messy in this, but the trick is when you get done with doing this, once they're dry, you just chop all of the little tips off, and then you get like really nice little tips that are all trimmed and neat. Not that my wigs are neat or tidy or even stable, because look at this. Here's the plumes. So I had that plume section cordoned off from the beginning. I gave them a haircut, and then this is all a process of banana-ing out hair in various ways. So I sectioned it into 3 sections for the 3 plumes, and then each section I would put into a little ponytail, and then each section I would banana out the hair so that I could have hair that I was not going to tease surrounding a bit of hair that I was going to tease. And I added in these little things. So these are just pieces of wire hot glued to a little piece of EVA foam. Like I took the wire and I bent it like S shape on the bottom so that I could stick it into the wig and hot glue it in there. And it kind of just got glued and secured in with the teasing that I had already done in the wig. But these were just like, take the middle section, tease the crap out of it, get the little EVA foam thing in there, and then bring all the hair over it and apparently not use enough glue. And then of course, as I do with all of my wigs, these were way too big and chunky, and I had to take my steamer and steam them a bunch to make them sit how I wanted them to sit. Here though, this is me making a mistake. This is the very front hairline. I put a lot of tacky glue in there when I pulled that up, and up until this morning, I have not been happy with how that front plume looks. Like, it looks better now, but it was really crunchy. It wasn't sitting straight, and I was like, you can do better than that, bitch. That looks really crunchy. And so what I did was I just took a comb and brushed it and like let any hair that wasn't completely glued in come out. And there was a section right here in the middle that was just totally tacky glued firm, but I managed to get the sides out and got them hairsprayed back, and they look a lot better than they did. This didn't look as smooth this morning. It was looking pretty crunchy, but I'm very happy with it. So there's the Warbler X in the bolt. That's what that looks like. It's a long bolt. This bolt goes all the way through to the other side of the styrofoam ball, which is not necessary, but I had a bolt that long, so I just used it. And see, you just put the X in the wig and then you put that on top. This is me putting it on for the first time. I'm a bird. So normally when I'll do like a ponytail or an updo wig, I'll do like the Foss shape hard base. And I like to do that because for wigs that specifically have like the base wig is the updo, like you have a pigtail back or you've got a ponytail. I have not actually done any kind of ponytail. This is just a short wig. It is a faux ponytail. I like doing the hard wigs for updos, true updos, because if you don't, you risk them getting real messed up. And that doesn't just mean just Foss shape. The glued down hard cap wigs that people do, the glue cap wigs, those also same thing. If it's not moving, then the glued fiber's not gonna get messed up. But like the way before the times of the hard cap wigs, what everybody would do for updos was stubbing, which is where you just put all of the hair into a ponytail stub, and it was kind of just glued into that stub. Like you'd bring it all up and you'd do a big ball of glue right here, and it would just be glued right here. It wouldn't be glued like in the part that's forming the head. And those would get so messed up because you could pull the hair out if you weren't careful. But then the hard cap, you can't do that. But this isn't going up into a ponytail, so there's no reason to make this a hard cap. But I'm very excited. I love Tulin as a cosplay. He's a big thing to pack. There have been so many cons where I'm just like, oh, maybe I'll bring Tulin. And he takes up half a suitcase with his head and his body, because his body has the big pillows in the hips, and he has like the PEX tube in his wings so that I can hold them up. And so he's just big. I can't fit him into a carry-on. He's a very fun cosplay to wear even with the head, but then it's also like you can't see anything in the head, and when I'm at a con, I'm there to vlog, and so I can't be like wearing a thing that makes it so I can't see and trying to film. And what if I need to take the head off? That was the other thing. When I wore him to Florida SuperCon, I had a booth, and so I just like, most of what I did that day was like doing the cosplay contest stuff and being at the booth. So I spent most of the day with the head on the table and not on my head. Are you going to be bringing the full outfit with the wings? Yes, yes. So I'm not wearing the wings right now because they're obviously attached to the sleeves and that would be annoying to try to stream with. But yeah, I'm gonna wear the full bird body with the outfit. This is just a for today stand-in shirt, but I'm taking his whole body, just not his head. So it's gonna be literally my Tulin cosplay as you've seen it, from the neck down with a new wig and this beak.